Sure. So we got the updated numbers this afternoon, and I put together a summary, pretty quick, high level, that I sent to Zell, and I think she sent to the board, but you probably got it 10 minutes before the meeting. So probably not a lot of time to look at it, but I can go through it, go through at least what we know right now. So the very first line item is the updated price they gave back on 11/30 based on our wood building option. That's where the pricing last stood. The next group of numbers are the deducts that they're offering for both keeping the building and eliminating the building. We can go through them one by one. They're offering a voluntary deduct, which is probably out of their overhead and profit. We're eliminating a transformer because for some reason they carried a transformer pad that's not required. We're reducing the utility allowance. We had a $50,000 allowance for utility connection, but you're already connected, so I can't imagine that there's going to be much of a fee associated with connecting power because you already have it. We're not changing the service size, so we did carry a little bit just in case they want to change the wires from the transformers to the pole. Because they've been there a while, but so we left a little bit there. We had a pretty large allowance for QA/QC testing. That's concrete and compaction testing. We had $7 grand for that. We reduced that by $2 grand. They're going to have a little bit of packaging for the pre-engineered metal building. It's plastic. It might be some styrofoam. That if they can just throw that in your dumpster, they can subtract $1,700 for that. Eliminate the winter heat because we're well beyond the need for that requirement. Swapping out the cast in place retaining wall for a ready rock retaining wall. That number we already knew. The deduct for the paving going from 5-inch to 4-inch and 19.5 millimeter for 2 layers. And then the building side of it, going back to a pre-engineered metal building. And then one place where they found some saving, instead of doing a cast in place elevated deck, they're going to do a precast plank deck. So that was a total savings of, and remove the overhead doors and pass doors. That was a total savings of $105,000 from their previous bid. And then of course the option to eliminate the building completely, but keep the control room and make that a little more watertight since it'll be out on its own. So you can see the two different deducts there. This is directly from Blaine Casey, just under 208,000 if we keep the building, and a little over 317 without the building. So that gets their total to 1083 if you keep the building, or just under 974,000 if you eliminate the building. Then we add in the Atlantic Recycling compactor and hopper numbers. They gave those to you, I think, over a couple weeks ago, maybe a week and a half ago. So a little over 68,000 for the compactor and hopper install with the building. If you eliminate the building, then closing the hopper and adding overhead doors at just under 119. So the project totals then end up a little over 1.1, keeping the building a little under 1.1 with no building. The OHSTT funding, I pulled from a slide that you had before. I'm not sure it's right, but I plugged it in there and we can change it during this meeting if you want. I can pull up the Excel spreadsheet and change that number. And then the green is the difference between that funding number and the project total. So if the funding number is correct, then you still have some contingency left over.
All right, that looks pretty good. Does anybody have any questions for Blaine or Chris?
Is the funding number correct? That's my first question.
I believe it is. Walter is the treasurer and he's got his hand up, so I'm going to call on Walter for that.
Okay. What we have, our capital account is $1,087,335. So the 1245222 assumes that we exhaust our entire contingency, which has never been an appetizing prospect to me.
If I can cut in on that, we had discussed in recent months, a few months back, that exhausting the contingency fund was a possibility, and at that time wasn't a real concern because everything is brand new. There shouldn't be any real major issues there. Up until about 5 or 6 years ago, we operated with no contingency at all, ever. That was something new that we put in. I never felt comfortable without a contingency. I know Skip has mentioned a number of times he didn't like it when we were operating without a contingency. That was brought up back when Dave Matthews was on the board, and he's an accountant, a pretty sharp guy with some numbers, and he managed to get us a contingency fund. And that's a line item, budget line item every year that gets refunded every year now. So I'm not too overly concerned with wiping out a contingency for 1 year. That will be funded again, not to the extent it is right now, but it will be funded in the following year. There'll be money put back into that contingency, and there'll be money every year beyond that put into the contingency. So I guess really what I'm trying to drive at is how comfortable does the board feel going a year or 18 months with no contingency whatsoever?
Yeah, I told my board that's where we were a long time ago. So I at least prepped them for the fact that we'd be rebuilding that contingency in our normal budget over time.
The thing is, I mean, I think these numbers are probably the best we're going to get at this point. I think Blaine and Chris has done a great job trying to reduce this the best they can, as much as they can, but we got hit with times that nobody's seen before. And I know if we don't do something soon, all the contractors are going to be busy. The prices right now seem to be stable, but my guys are saying that they could go up again here shortly as things get moving again. So
The volatile number here is the paving right now.
is the what, Chris?
Paving.
Paving, right. I just had some estimates done on paving, and man, that went up big time. It's fuel driven, that's the problem.
Exactly. Yep. And I mean, if everything goes smoothly and the numbers don't change throughout the project, then you still have a contingency.
Right.
Oh, no, you don't. No, you don't, because you're assuming you go with the building option, oh no, you would have a contingency. The difference between you'd have 94,000 left in your contingency account.
Right. What's your thoughts, Zell?
Yeah, I think it's great to see. So thank you for all the good work on this. Well, I think, obviously looking at keeping the building and still having that money available, that definitely seems promising. So, what I wonder is, we could do all this prep for a building and not do the building, but do all the foundation work. And then we go 5 years from now to look at putting a building up and it's double the cost. So I'm just sort of wondering to myself, does it make sense to just go ahead and do the building now? And then, we're that much more prepared for the future. And, we've engineered and gone through all this work, looking at having 94,000 left over. I personally kind of favor that option. But, I also would love to see about doing more paving there. So, if we were to do no building, I would, consider that maybe we do some of the more paving, sort of adding on more paving to the job.
Also coming up, we're about to prepare another budget for the towns. I mean, we could look into, I hate to say it, but we could look into budgeting some money there for the paving in the curbside section. That's a possibility. I mean, that's open for discussion. Feel free to share your thoughts.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. We could budget for it. I think it would be nice at the end of this project to have, it paved and just kind of have things, really sharp and looking good over there. But I think also budgeting for it definitely makes sense.
I can't see all the players on the board right at the moment, but is there anybody else that has any thoughts on this?
This is Lynn Chaplin, and I just wanted to, well, I really wanted to ask you guys to, I get that what you want to do. I hear everything that you're saying. I'm not saying that it's, good or bad. We're just an unprecedented situation right now. So that's not, you guys have put so much work and effort into this. But in the future, I would, when you talk about trying to get more money for budgeting this, that, and the other thing, we're kind of topped out here. Owl's Head is really topped out as far as the school budget goes. It is unbelievable what we pay for that little school. So, keep it in mind when you're asking for money, what the whole town is. And I use the transfer station, so I really do like the idea of paving. I'm just trying to think of putting it in there as, whatever happened to saving money for it and then paying for it? Is that like an idea that's passé?
If I may, Lynn, if I may, I don't want to interrupt you, but the last project that was done in 2008, that was budgeted ahead of time, and we had the money. Most of it, we had to borrow $50,000 to complete the project, but there was some foresight going on there, and we did budget it. And sort of in a way, we did this one too, but COVID hit us, and everything that we had budgeted, pre-planned for got taken over. And I definitely hear you about, looking at price increases down the road. That's why I said I kind of reluctantly say budget it, because we know that's going to be an added line or more cost to your assessment. That's why I do it cautiously. We can look at it. It might not be possible. I mean, we are conscious of keeping that down. I got to apologize. This year, we've never, ever had a budget like this, ever. Most of the time we come in with a zero increase or only 1%, 2%, or 3%. Most of the time we come in with lower increases than any other budget that's presented to you from any municipalities. We all felt bad when that came in the way it did this year.
Oh, and I wanted to ask you, what is the, I haven't heard, what is the new 2-year ticket going to be for the windshield tag? What's that going to be for the transfer fund for a residential?
I believe right at the moment when we set the last budget, but we got to sit down and tweak that because things have changed, but I believe it was going to be 20. Am I right, Zell?
Yeah, 20.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
I just wanted to express my concern, so I appreciate it.
Sure, no problem. Is there anybody else out there that got some thoughts? Like I said, I can only see a portion of the board here, so.
Walter has his hand up.
Okay, Walt.
I was just going to say that we don't have a paving reserve, which South Thomaston does. I don't know if the other towns do. We have a process where we fund it 1 year and pave the next, but we effectively at the transfer station have that. It's called our capital improvement fund. And we've been building it up over the last 4 years. And it just so happens that this year we're going to spend it. And then the process starts over again. So you think of that capital improvement fund as a reserve. That's not designed to be funded and exhausted in the same year.
Yeah, that's absolutely right.
And to the extent that we have no pressing items for that, then that's a discretionary item. If our assessment is looking like it's going to be too onerous, that's one of the things that you zero out or cut back. Same with the contingency. And we'll address all that when we do the 1 year budget coming up.
Yes, Scott.
Hey, what is the price for the overhead doors and the passenger door, the passage doors? By not doing them.
The overhead doors were about $45,000 and the pass doors were, I think there were two of them. They were $1,600 a piece.
So when you talk about down the road, if we replace them prices are probably going to double and triple in the next few years too, right? Would you guess? Maybe.
Possibly.
So that's just something that you, to Zell's point is, we might want to look at is, if we don't do them, the cost of those are going to be out of sight to do in the next 3 to 4 years too.
That is an interesting point, valid point.
And the other thing is, I'm not trying to be mean or whatever, but some of the stuff that we're fixing now, the drainage and stuff was done 15 years ago incorrectly, and that wasn't paved. And the problem was we were going to do it in the future, and it never got done. So it's like building your house. If you don't do your cabinets and you move in, they'll never get done. You know, it's, you know, I mean, we all chuckle at it, but it's the way it is. If you start your car and you don't fix the switch, it never gets fixed till it, you know, so to kick some of this stuff down the road might bite us in the long run, you know?
You're absolutely right, Scott. That's a good analogy too. You know, we're trying to get this in that budget. What's your thoughts, Zell?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably true of a lot of these things. You know, it probably would be more cost effective to do it now, but so, you know, we could look at adding those things back in and, you know, certainly as, you know, assuming the, you know, as things get started, we could look at, you know, possibly adding things in if there's money available. You know, we also talked about possible grant opportunities. So, I mean, there are ways to get some things added back.
Any other thoughts?
Yeah, I have a question.
Sure.
On the chart, it says eliminate transformer pad and reduce utility allowance. Does that mean we won't have those expenses, or it's just been taken out of this bid? Wouldn't that still be an expense that should be looking at as part of this project?
No, that's what I described at the beginning. The transformer pad didn't need to be there to begin with because there's no
Okay.
new transformers. Well, that's not true. There's a reducing transformer that's going to be inside the building. The utility allowance, we checked with the electrical engineer. We carried one because he thought it was going to be a new service. It's not. It's an existing service. So we are carrying some number in case the utility wants to replace the wires from their pole to street to your pole on site. So we did leave some in there, but it may not be needed. So that could be another $5,000 savings.
Okay. And what's the Q quality assurance testing? What was the reason for that?
That one, we estimated an allowance for that at $7,000. In a conversation with the folks today, they thought it would be closer to 5. So we reduced that by $2,000. It's tested. It's for testing the concrete in the soil as it's placed in front of the building for compaction.
Correct. It's normal.
Yep. Yep. And those are allowances. So if they're not used, they're given back to the, or you don't have to pay anything because there was nothing to pay for.
Okay, well, my only other question is I thought we were going to get a line item of the total cost of the project since we had gone. It's no longer a bid project. It's now kind of like a negotiated project. I had one for a $400,000 elevator that I oversaw a couple of years ago, and I was going to send it, but I didn't think it was necessary. I kind of wish I had now. In other words, it's the original cost bid sheet where this contractor shares with the client, which is a normal process, every part of how they accumulate their total price, including overhead, profit, supervision, etc. But which I think should be required, but if the board is going to go ahead with this information, and I'm only 1 of 6 votes.
Well, to speak to that a little bit, this is it's a lump sum project, so that's not typical. That's more typical of a T&E project where it'd be an open book and you'd share all that information. If you want to change the contract type, then I mean, we'd have to talk to Blaine Casey about that, but this is a fixed fee or a lump sum project. There will be a schedule of values that's more detailed than this, so we can track costs as it's built, typically by sub.
So this is a sheet you put together. This isn't what they supplied to you that we thought was going to get supplied to us. In other words, this is your intermediary work?
That's correct. They provided these line items here, and I did the math down below.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, you probably couldn't see my screen, but so for all the deducts they gave us, and then I did the math from there down.
So we're looking at this project now with no doors.
That's correct.
Okay. So I'll do a hypothetical. If we get they haven't had any the last couple of years, but if you get a 2-day snowstorm that happens to be blowing directly at the building side that has the doors where there are no doors, is that going to affect the operation of this thing? Could that cause a problem with a couple of days of rainstorm or a snowstorm? And I mean, is there any concern? I don't have that expertise with operating something like this. It seemed like the whole project was going to be to have an enclosure, and now it's a building but no enclosure, open to the weather, depending on where it happens to be coming from.
Well, I think that's a point somebody tried to make a few minutes ago, that the doors are probably not going to get any cheaper either. So maybe why not do it now if it's a 50 grand line item? But to speak to your point, most of the snow comes out of the northeast, and that wall is all blanked off, no doors, no openings. The other doors are on the west and the south. There's typically not much snow coming out of the south. There could be some coming out of the west. Operationally, yeah, I would think there may have to be some shoveling if snow gets inside the building. I assume that's what happens now. You have to shovel around those compactors when it snows. Now, again, defeats the purpose of putting it inside the building if you have to do that. But
yeah,
that was one way to get the cost down and keep some contingency.
My thoughts on that is we go without the doors at the onset here. But like you said, there are several different things that could be taken away that would save us money. Again, I don't want to burn up that $94,000 contingency early on by putting doors in and find out something went wrong and we wish we hadn't done it. I think as we get closer to the end and we really nail down the numbers, we know we didn't have to pay this for the QA testing, or we didn't have to, with a couple $1,000 or $5,000 for the electrical didn't come into play, then we could start looking at putting those doors in. I just want to be a little cautious about that. That's all. I mean, the towns were clear that they didn't oppose the project, but they just wanted to know if there was ways we could do things in stages and keep it within budget. And this would be one of the minor issues to do it in stages, is to not put the doors in at the moment. My thoughts. I mean, anybody else can chime in on that if they want. Nothing?
Well, yes.
You're wrong.
I'd like to see the doors in, because I know what it's like to stand over there and have that wind blowing and blowing that stuff all in your face and everything.
Yeah, I think we're all on the same page of that. We'd like to have them. We can absolutely do it. Is there anybody else out there that's got a thought or an opinion?
I just have a thought on that. I hear everybody talking about the prices are just going to continue to skyrocket and go up and up and up and up. Well, you know what? 2008, people said the same thing, and everybody went out and bought brand new houses and indebted themselves to the max, and then it crashed, and then all the prices came down. So you know what? When they're inflationary, everything that goes up must come down. That is simple math. So, or physics actually. So I hear your intensity, and I hear that you would really like to get everything done, but I don't think that I don't think the world's going to come to an end if we have another 6 months or a year of not having doors and having another winter of shoveling when you've been doing it for however many years that you've been doing it. I absolutely agree that it needs to be done at some point. Of course, I'm sure that the road and everything's going to have to be shoveled too, right? The pass through, I mean, all of that has to be plowed around in there. So it's not like we get to go without snow work in the winter time. But I would just like to point out that I don't, all I hear is like sort of like this frantic, oh, the sky is falling, the prices are going to go up, and what's going to happen? So everything crashes. That's what happens when it goes up too high and it becomes unsustainable. Just a thought.
No, you're right. I mean, history has shown when things keep getting inflated like this, everybody's pocketbook has a limit. And when they've reached that limit, there's nowhere to go. They can't go any higher. When sales and stuff drop, companies have to cut their prices. So you're absolutely right. But the question is, will they ever go back to what they were? Usually they don't.
No.
They may not go back to what we are today. So that's the question. They may not get any worse than what they are today, but I don't think we'll ever see them any lower than where we are at the moment.
How much haven't they gone up, like $200,000, 400,000? No, it was $500,000, wasn't it? It was what, 50% from what was originally budgeted? Isn't that what the original total? It went up from a million whatever to 1.5 million, correct?
No, it went from $97,000.
970,000.
Yeah, and it went to $1.2 million.
Oh,
So it roughly went up 300,000, or just short of it.
okay. Had my numbers all wrong. I apologize.
It's not hard to do because we got numbers being flopped around everywhere.
Right, and our estimate was around 1.1.
Originally, way back in the
Time.
beginning, 6 years ago.
Yeah, 6 years ago. Yeah. Yeah, we were lucky the first time it came in at 970. Unfortunately, we couldn't get there.
I mean, I really think the board's done a pretty decent job trying to keep it within the original estimate, considering all the things that's gone on in the last 2 years, even. I mean, it's not just the last 12, but it's been going on for a couple of years. And we're still right in the original estimate.
Is this going to be run by the select board or at a public forum in any way? I mean, not that a lot of people go to those anyway. I realize that. But like the select board, every once in a while, somebody from the solid waste comes by and gives a little update of what's going on.
Yeah, typically the selectmen have been sitting on, one selectman has been on the board from each town. In
Right.
the past years, that selectman obviously sitting there, sitting at that meeting,
Yeah.
gave an update. Owl's Head right now does not have a selectman sitting on this board, so I did the update a month or so ago for the select board, and we're chatting new waters. So I asked the select board what their desires were, what they wanted, how they wanted the report, how often they want the report. Town of Owl's Head wants me to come in about once every 3 months, unless something crucial changes. They get sent the minutes of the meetings. They get the agenda ahead of time, and they felt that was fine short term. So at every quarter, I have to go in and give them a report, unless something seriously changes. Walt, you had your hand up, or you have your hand up.
Yeah, I think though at the tri-town meeting that we had, I think we left the impression, if not the firm commitment, that when we settled on this, we would get the 3 groups back together again to, I don't know, put the period on the sentence or whatever, you know. Here's where we are, here's where we're going now. So I would advise that that's a good thing to do.
Yeah, was that what you was referring to, Lynn? Was just this project only or heading down the road? You're muted, Lynn.
Sorry
Lynn,
about
there you go.
I don't know what's headed down the road, so I'm only referring to this project, but I could be back again.
Okay, well,
Really,
so you got two answers, actually. So you know where we're going with this one and what we plan on doing for information there.
Mhm.
And you know how the information is going to flow to the town going forward. So you got actually two answers. Walt, you still have your hand up.
I just haven't taken it down yet.
Okay, I just didn't know if you had something else you wanted to say.
Thanks for recognizing me, Mr. Chairman.
Hey, I'm catching on to these little gadgets on here, finally.
So Bruce, I would just like to mention that, I mean, obviously you need to do what you need to do with the 3 towns, but keep in mind, the longer we push this out, you know, numbers could change again. So
Right.
getting a signed contract so they can order materials sooner than later is going to help guarantee that they can hold this price.
Right. I think we could probably set a 3-town meeting up within a week. We get this out over the weekend and try to get them together on a Zoom meeting, just like we are here, so that they can understand where we're at and they can have their input. Again, I can't see the full screen, so I don't know if somebody else has signed on, but Thomaston's had some selectmen sitting on these meetings all along, been monitoring this. Owl said I haven't seen any selectmen on here the last few meetings. Obviously, we have Walt. Did we have anybody from South Thomaston, Walt, last few meetings besides you?
No,
Okay. But do you feel that's pretty accurate, Walt? We could probably pull something together in this upcoming week?
yeah, and you know, I mean, I'm going to go to my guys as soon as this meeting's over and just update them, which is what I always do. So
Zell, I lost you, but what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree. Since we have our monthly board meeting next Thursday, I think it would be great for our board to make a vote to what we decide to do here by that Thursday. So that way Blaine Casey isn't waiting for us. So I mean, ideally, I think if we could have that 3-town meeting before next Thursday so we can vote on it as a board, that would be great.
I agree. And Owl's Head select board meeting is on Monday.
Right. There's no way we can pull that off before then, but
So it may be just go to each of them individually. If you
Yeah.
show up on Monday, Bruce, like I said, I'll talk to John and Jeff tonight, and Zell can talk to her colleagues.
yeah, I can do that if you'd like.
And
So,
then, you know,
so Walter, were you suggesting that we just kind of give the board updates and ask for questions before our Thursday meeting, or we try to have a 3-town meeting before then?
well, that if possible, but to me, it's the third, us voting next Thursday at the latest is I think important to lock in the pricing and get this contract settled. And you know, I mean, the feedback I heard from the Tri-Town meeting was get the project into our original budget was the number one desire by most of the select board members. And I think none of them was conversant enough to really have a substantive, do less of this and more of that in terms of the details. And so we didn't get any concrete feedback on that score from them. And oh, by the way, they kind of trust us to know more about this stuff than they do.
Yeah, I think Al said would share that. That's why none of them want to sit on this board. Yeah, Lynn.
I agree. Can this transfer station improvement chart be sent to them so that they will have some sort of an idea of, well, I mean, that's kind of like a really good thing, you know, a chart for dummies.
Yeah, we can forward that to them right after the meeting for that matter. I mean, we have their email addresses so we can send it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you get it to them beforehand, they can look at it and know if they have any questions. It's really hard to sit at those meetings and scan something and do anything, you know, concrete. when
Oh,
you're
believe
trying
how well I know. You're absolutely right. Okay, so is there anything else? Well, while we got Blaine on there, I want to ask him if that works for him, the time frame.
Yeah, that's fine with us.
I mean, we'll try to pull this off and get it done for you by next Thursday night when we have our regular meeting.
Yep. Nope.
And
that
Galen,
should-
happy St. Patrick's Day. I assume Galen's Irish, and thanks for your work on this.
Yeah, no problem. I am happy St. Patrick's Day to you as well.
Okay, so is there any other comments or? So we all clear on the game plan at this point?
Yep.
I believe that the plan is that Zell will go before her board, Walter's going before his, and I will take it up with Owl's Head. And then we'll meet back on our regular business meeting Thursday night to finish this up. Is that everybody on that page?
Yeah, that sounds great.
All right. Zell, can you forward, do you have all the emails for all the selectmen?
Yes, I will send this document or, yeah.
I will get a hold of Gordon Page right after this because I think his agenda is probably made out, but he can probably fit me in on an emergency situation there.
Great.
All right.
Thank
So
you,
what's-
everyone. Yep.
What's everybody's pleasure?
Move to adjourn.
Do I have a
Second.
second? All righty. Thank you, folks.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
guys.
Thank you.
Take care and have a good night.
You
Thank
too.
you.